What if I told you that the strangest moments you experience in life, the ones you usually brush off or ignore, are actually the clearest clues to the truth about your existence? Think about that eerie sensation of déjà vu. You step into a room, or you turn a corner, and suddenly your whole body feels like it already knows this place. There's a wave of recognition so strong that it rattles you, yet your logical mind insists, "No, this is impossible. I have never been here before." You shake it off, laugh it away, or convince yourself it's just a little quirk of the brain. But what if that moment isn't a mistake? What if it's evidence leaking through the cracks of a reality far stranger than you've been told? Now remember those times you've met someone for the first time, yet felt like you've known them for centuries. A sudden warmth in the chest, an inexplicable trust, or even a resistance you can't rationalize. You lock eyes with them, and it's as if you're continuing a conversation that began long before this lifetime. You might shrug it off as instant chemistry, or maybe even a strange coincidence. But deep down, you feel the pull of something more, something that doesn't fit into the neat boxes of logic. And then there are the dreamlike moments, those times when life itself feels blurry at the edges. You could be sitting at a coffee shop, or walking down a street you've traveled 1,000 times, and suddenly reality feels softer, less solid. You catch yourself staring, wondering if you're awake, or if you've slipped into another layer of consciousness. Have you ever had those moments where time seems to bend, where a single second stretches out into eternity, or an entire day vanishes in what feels like the blink of an eye? These are not accidents, they are whispers. And those whispers have been spoken of for thousands of years. Ancient Tibetan teachings describe something called the Bardo, the in-between state of consciousness that exists after death but before rebirth. According to these teachings, the Bardo is a dreamlike realm where awareness drifts, where landscapes shift in response to thought, where the soul moves through visions that feel as solid and real as waking life. The Tibetans map this out carefully, teaching that the soul passes through stages in this in-between world, some peaceful, others terrifying. But here's the part that unsettles many who study these texts. Their descriptions of the Bardo don't sound like a faraway afterlife. They sound a lot like what you are experiencing right now. Consider how the Bardo is described as a place where time loses its consistency. Haven't you already noticed that in your own life? As a child, summers seemed to stretch endlessly, each day rich and full, while now entire years slip past as if they were single moments. The elasticity of time, the way memory bends it, the way awareness stretches and contracts, it's all there, woven into your daily life. Doesn't that echo what the Tibetans were pointing to? The Bardo is also described as a place where your internal state manifests around you. If you enter it with fear, you encounter fearful visions. If you carry love, you're met with loving forms. This mirrors your waking existence with startling accuracy. When you move through your day in a state of anxiety, doesn't everything seem to align with that frequency? People treat you differently. Opportunities feel blocked. Even the world itself appears heavier. But when you're aligned with joy or peace, reality itself seems to respond, reshaping itself around you. What you thought was just mood or coincidence might actually be the same principle the Tibetans described centuries ago. So, here's the uncomfortable question. Are you waiting for an afterlife that you're already in? Could it be that what you've been taught to call life is nothing more than one layer of the Bardo, a slowed down, physical version of the same consciousness playground mystics spoke of? Think about the times you've felt like you're playing out a script that's already been written. How many times have you caught yourself saying, "I knew this would happen," or "I've been here before"? These aren't glitches in your brain. They're the symptoms of something bigger, a veil you're peeking through, revealing that your awareness is not confined to this single moment, this single body, or even this single lifetime. You've probably noticed how certain places carry inexplicable weight. A street corner, a house, a field, you arrive there for the first time, and suddenly your heart swells with emotion you can't explain. Or maybe there's a heaviness in the air, as though echoes of something long past still cling to the walls and the stones. Science calls this memory association. But what if it's more than that? What if those sensations are fragments bleeding through from another layer of existence, another chapter you've already lived, another time your consciousness occupied a body, walked this earth, and left traces in the fabric of reality? Even relationships carry this haunting familiarity. You meet someone new, and instantly feel the magnetic pull of destiny. It's as though you've been circling one another for lifetimes, finding and losing each other across the vastness of existence. You've probably felt it, that eerie sense that certain people were meant to cross your path, meant to play roles in your story, even if you can't articulate why. What if that's not just poetic longing but a recognition that your soul is retracing steps it has walked countless times before, repeating lessons, rehearsing themes, refining the script? And here's the part most people miss. What if you've been so conditioned to believe in a single, linear life that you don't notice you're already living in the afterlife? If the Bardo is an intermediate realm, a place of transitions and tests, then doesn't our physical world carry all the same hallmarks? Shifting experiences that mirror our inner state, time-bending and stretching, a sense of familiarity that can't be explained, and lessons presented over and over until we finally learn them. If you stop for a moment and let this possibility settle in, the implications are staggering. Everything you've been taught about waiting for heaven, hell, or some distant judgment may not be the full story. Instead, what if you're already there, already inside the training ground, already within the afterlife, already navigating the maze of consciousness while calling it daily life? Every moment of confusion, every flicker of déjà vu, every encounter that feels scripted could be reminding you of the truth that has always been hiding in plain sight. So next time that eerie familiarity creeps over you, don't dismiss it. Don't shrug it off as a brain hiccup. Pause. Ask yourself what it might mean. Ask if you're really awake, or if this moment is a reminder that you are far more than flesh and memory. Ask if the afterlife you've been told to wait for is actually unfolding all around you right now, disguised as your ordinary life. Because if the mystics were right, if the Tibetans mapped the in-between with such precision, then what you're experiencing every day isn't just living. It's awakening in the very place you thought only came after death. What if I told you that the truths we're only now beginning to glimpse through microscopes and quantum experiments were already written thousands of years ago by mystics who had nothing but silence, meditation, and their own inner vision as their tools? For centuries, humanity has believed that science and spirituality stood on opposite sides of the river, one rooted in logic, the other lost in myth. But if you take a closer look at the oldest teachings known to man, you'll find something extraordinary. They were pointing toward the same discoveries that physicists are now stumbling upon in laboratories. The only difference is the language. One spoke in the poetry of the soul, the other in the mathematics of the universe. Let's begin with the Tibetan Book of the Dead, a sacred text that was never meant to terrify but to guide. It describes what happens in the intermediate state of consciousness, the Bardo, the place you enter when the body falls away. In its pages, it teaches that reality is fluid. It shifts according to the state of your awareness. Terrifying visions emerge if you are filled with fear. Peaceful deities appear if you carry love. It explains that these aren't external beings at all, but reflections of your own mind projected outward. This is why the Tibetans insisted that training the mind in life was crucial, because after death you would be surrounded by the raw, magnified manifestations of your own inner state. Now, pause for a moment, and consider how startlingly this parallels what modern scientists have discovered. The double-slit experiment in quantum physics proves that reality doesn't take form until it is observed. It remains as probability until consciousness collapses it into matter. The Tibetans were describing the same principle long before any physicist held chalk in his hand. Hermeticism, a collection of ancient teachings attributed to the sage Hermes Trismegistus, echoes this exact truth in a single, thunderous declaration. The all is mind. The universe is mental. This statement, written centuries before telescopes, particle colliders, or simulations, declares that everything you see, every star, every stone, every cell in your body, is not solid matter but thought, stuff. It is mind expressing itself in form. This wasn't mythology. It was the distilled essence of mystical observation, a truth seen not through experiments, but through direct experience of consciousness itself. When the Hermetic philosophers spoke of the mental nature of the universe, they were laying the groundwork for what scientists now describe as the informational basis of reality. Think about it. Physicists like Thomas Campbell and others now suggest that what we call reality is not physical at its root but informational, a rendering of consciousness much like data on a computer screen. Matter is not ultimate, mind is. Doesn't that sound eerily familiar to the Hermetic axiom? The ancients didn't have the language of quantum mechanics, but they had vision. They saw that the outer world was inseparable from the inner world, that consciousness was the thread weaving everything together. Hindu philosophy takes this further with the concept of Maya. Maya is often mistranslated as illusion, but its true meaning is more profound. It doesn't suggest that life is meaningless or unreal. It says that what we perceive as reality is a projection, a veil, a shadow play of something deeper. Imagine a movie screen. You watch the story unfold, you laugh, you cry, you feel fear, and your heart races. Yet you know that the images are just light dancing on a canvas. The movie is not unimportant, but it is not the whole truth. Hindu sages insisted that the world you inhabit is just like this. It's a divine projection, a temporary stage on which consciousness plays its roles. The danger lies in forgetting that it's a play, in clinging so tightly to the illusion that you mistake the characters for your true self. Now bring this into the present. In physics, there is a theory called simulation hypothesis. It suggests that what we're experiencing may not be base reality but a simulation, a projection running with astonishing precision. Doesn't this sound exactly like Maya? Ancient sages spoke of it as a divine dream. Scientists call it a virtual construct. But the essence is the same. What you see isn't all there is. Reality is deeper, layered, and your senses only catch the surface. The convergence is undeniable. The Tibetans mapped the after-death states with surgical precision. Hermeticism declared that the universe is mental. Hinduism revealed that reality is Maya. All of them described consciousness as the foundation. Thousands of years later, quantum physics reluctantly admits the same thing. Particles do not exist as fixed objects until consciousness observes them. The universe is not a cold machine operating independently of you. It is a responsive system that bends and shapes itself around your awareness. And here's the question that changes everything. If the ancients already knew this, why did we spend centuries convincing ourselves otherwise? Why did humanity choose to believe in a lifeless, mechanical universe, rather than the vibrant, conscious field described by mystics? The answer lies in control. When you forget that consciousness is primary, you begin to believe you are powerless. When you accept the illusion that you are separate from the universe, you become easy to manipulate. Fear takes root. But when you awaken to the truth whispered across ages, that the universe itself is a living mind and you are a spark of it, then fear dissolves. Power returns to where it belongs, within you. You can see it even in the way life behaves around you. Think of times when you were weighed down by anger or despair. Didn't your reality seem to reflect that back to you? Doors closed, people mirrored your energy, synchronicities turned sour. And what about the times when you were filled with joy, gratitude, or love? Suddenly, opportunities arose, chance meetings uplifted you, and reality itself seemed to bend in your favor. These are not coincidences. They are the Hermetic truth in motion, the Tibetan truth unfolding, the Hindu truth alive in your own experience. So what does this mean for you right now? It means that you're not just walking through a physical world made of atoms and chance. You're moving through a field of consciousness, one that mirrors your state of being and responds to your vibration. You're not powerless. You're not trapped. You're not waiting for some distant afterlife to wake up in. You are living inside a reality that the ancients called illusion, the mystics called the mental universe, and science is now reluctantly calling an informational system. And every choice you make, every thought you entertain, every emotion you nurture, is shaping how that system unfolds around you. When the Hermetic philosophers declared, "The all is mind," they weren't speaking metaphorically. They were stating a truth so profound that it shook the foundation of reality itself. When Hindu sages spoke of Maya, they weren't trying to dismiss the world. They were reminding you not to confuse the shadow with the source. And when the Tibetan masters wrote about the Bardo, they weren't describing some distant, otherworldly plane. They were pointing directly at what you're already immersed in. So the next time you question whether you have any real power, remember this. The very oldest teachings humanity has ever carried whisper the same things science is beginning to prove. Consciousness is not trapped inside your skull, it is the foundation of existence itself. You are not a spectator in the universe, you are the universe, aware of itself. And that recognition, that shift in perception, is the key that unlocks the prison door of illusion. What if I told you that one of the most mind-bending spiritual truths we explore today didn't come from an ancient monastery or a mystical vision, but from a physicist who spent decades working on some of the most advanced projects in modern science? Imagine a man trained in the precision of mathematics and the discipline of engineering, someone who helped design systems for defense and aerospace, suddenly arriving at a conclusion that sounds closer to mysticism than physics. That man is Thomas Campbell, and his journey shattered the wall between science and spirituality in ways that are still echoing today. Campbell's path didn't begin in meditation halls or sacred temples. He was a scientist, a problem solver, a man tasked with making calculations that could not be wrong. He worked with NASA, developing technology that required absolute precision. His career was defined by logic, structure, and empirical results. He was not searching for enlightenment. He was searching for answers that could withstand scrutiny in the harshest environments of science and engineering. And yet, it was that same scientific rigor that led him to step into an entirely different arena, the study of consciousness itself. Unlike many who dabble in questions of the mind, Campbell applied the same methods he used in physics to the exploration of human awareness. He subjected himself to countless experiments, including controlled out-of-body experiences that pushed the limits of what science considers possible. He wasn't trying to prove a point, he was simply following the data wherever it led, and over decades of research, his data pointed to a single conclusion that upended everything he thought he knew. Reality, as we experience it, is not solid, it is not fundamental, it is information. To explain this, Campbell wrote a groundbreaking trilogy he called My Big Toe, with 2 standing for Theory of Everything. The name itself hints at the scale of what he was attempting, not just to describe how matter works, or how energy flows, but to show how consciousness itself forms the bedrock of existence. In his model, everything you see, touch, and experience is not a physical object in the way you've been taught. It is information being rendered to your awareness, much like a computer renders pixels on a screen. Think of it this way. When you play a video game, the world inside the screen feels immersive. You see landscapes, characters, objects, but none of those things actually exist inside your console. They are not physical, they are data, being processed by the system and displayed for you in real time. If you tried to peel back the curtain, you wouldn't find real trees or mountains, you'd find lines of code. Campbell suggests that our universe operates the same way. The chair you're sitting on, the device you're holding, even your own body, they are not ultimate reality. They are information packets rendered to your consciousness in a way that allows you to interact with them as though they were solid. This is not a theory he built on wild speculation. Campbell approached the question of consciousness with the same discipline he used when working on classified defense systems. He sought repeatable results, testable frameworks, and logical consistency. And what he discovered was astonishing. The more he tested, the more he realized that consciousness itself was primary, that matter was secondary. In other words, what you think of as solid reality is actually the byproduct of something deeper, a fundamental field of awareness processing information into what you perceive. To make this easier to grasp, imagine once again the world of virtual reality. When you put on a VR headset, you enter a space that feels incredibly real. You can walk, touch, and even interact with objects. But you know, deep down, that the headset is feeding you data, it's generating a convincing illusion. Campbell argues that your life is no different. You are wearing the headset of consciousness, and reality is the immersive simulation being rendered in front of you. The difference is that this simulation is far more advanced than any technology humans have ever built. It is a system so vast, so complex, and so precise that it not only mimics reality, but generates experiences designed to help consciousness evolve. Now pause and consider the implications. If reality is information, then what you think of as solid boundaries are not truly fixed. They are flexible, responsive, and subject to the influence of consciousness itself. This is why so many spiritual traditions insist that your inner state shapes your outer world. They weren't speaking in metaphor, they were describing a literal principle of how the system works. Just as your choices in a video game determine the unfolding of your character's story, your thoughts, emotions, and awareness influence how the informational system of reality responds to you. And this is where Campbell's credentials make his message so compelling. He wasn't a fringe mystic claiming secret knowledge. He was a physicist, trusted to work on some of the most advanced and sensitive projects of his time. His credibility as a scientist means that when he says consciousness creates reality, people take notice. He didn't arrive at this conclusion because of faith or folklore. He arrived at it through the same methods that guide rockets into orbit and calculate the trajectory of satellites. And yet, those methods pointed him directly into territory most scientists are too cautious to tread. The idea that what you call reality is not fundamental at all. What makes this even more powerful is the bridge it builds between ancient wisdom and modern physics. When Campbell describes reality as informational, he is echoing the Hermetic truth that the universe is mental, the Hindu idea of Maya as projection, and the Tibetan teachings of the Bardo as mind-created realms. Thousands of years apart, separated by language and culture, mystics and physicists are meeting in the same space. Consciousness is not a side effect of matter. Matter is a side effect of consciousness. And if that's true, then your life is not just a random series of events. It is part of an intelligently designed system. Every challenge, every triumph, every moment of synchronicity is not coincidence. It's data being rendered in response to the state of your awareness. Campbell suggests that the universe itself functions like a school, offering you lessons tailored to your growth. Struggle and hardship are not punishments. They are feedback, signals in the system, guiding you toward higher levels of understanding. This vision of reality doesn't diminish science, it expands it. Instead of a cold, mechanical universe, you find yourself inside a living, responsive information field that bends to the influence of consciousness. Instead of being a powerless observer, you realize you are a participant in the rendering process itself. Your awareness is not trapped inside a body, it is the very thing shaping what the body experiences. So, ask yourself, what if everything you've been told about matter, solidity, and limits is just the surface? What if, beneath it all, the universe is nothing more than an infinite information system, a virtual reality designed not for entertainment but for growth? And what if you are not a passive character wandering blindly through it, but a co-creator shaping the code with every choice you make? When Thomas Campbell looked at the evidence, he saw that reality was not the rigid, unyielding world we've been taught to believe in. It was something far more flexible, mysterious, and astonishing. Reality is information, consciousness is primary, and you, whether you realize it or not, are part of the rendering system itself. That realization doesn't just break the rules of science, it breaks the walls of reality itself. What if I told you that reality itself waits for you? That the universe doesn't fully decide what it will be until you look at it? It sounds impossible, like something out of a science fiction story. Yet, this is exactly what the foundations of modern quantum physics have revealed. The deeper scientists dug into the building blocks of existence, the stranger the answers became, until they found themselves staring into a truth that spiritual traditions had been whispering for millennia. Matter does not exist as a fixed thing until consciousness interacts with it. The physical world, as solid as it feels, is not solid at all. It is probability waiting to be observed. At the center of this mystery lies one of the most famous and unsettling experiments ever conducted: the double slit experiment. Imagine you set up a simple test with a light source aimed at a barrier containing two thin slits. On the other side of the barrier is a screen where the light lands. You would expect the light to behave like tiny particles, shooting through one slit or the other, forming two distinct bands on the screen. But what actually happens is far stranger. The light doesn't just go through one slit or the other. Instead, it creates an interference pattern, the kind of design you'd expect if light were behaving as a wave, passing through both slits at once, rippling and colliding with itself. This baffled scientists because it meant that light wasn't just a particle. It was also a wave of probabilities, existing in multiple possibilities at once. To make sense of this, researchers tried to measure which slit the particle actually passed through. The moment they observed it, something extraordinary happened. The interference pattern vanished. The light stopped behaving like a wave and collapsed into a particle, as if reality itself had been forced to choose. Consciousness, simply by observing, had collapsed probability into form. Without observation, reality remained smeared out across all possibilities. With observation, it became fixed. This is not just a quirky detail of physics. It is a revelation about the very nature of existence. The universe does not unfold independently of you. It waits for you. It responds to you. It shapes itself around the act of your awareness. The double-slit experiment is not just about light or particles. It is about you, the observer, and the power of consciousness to literally draw reality out of the field of possibilities. Werner Heisenberg, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, captured this paradox with a statement that has haunted physics ever since. What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning. Think about what that means. Reality is not a static, pre-existing object waiting for you to discover it. Reality shows up according to how you interact with it, how you question it, how you observe it. In other words, you're not standing outside of the universe, peering in like a spectator at a play. You are a participant, influencing the very lines of the script as you read them. This discovery was not welcome news for many scientists. For centuries, the dominant worldview was materialism, the belief that the universe is made of solid matter, running on predictable laws, indifferent to human thought or feeling. Consciousness, in that model, was nothing more than a byproduct of the brain, an accidental flicker arising from chemical processes. But quantum physics cracked that worldview open. It showed that matter itself does not behave like matter until consciousness interacts with it. Without observation, particles don't have definite properties. They exist as probabilities, potentialities, waves of possibility that only collapse into physical form when observed. Consider how this mirrors what mystics have always taught. For thousands of years, spiritual traditions have insisted that the mind shapes reality, that your inner world is not separate from the outer world, but directly connected to it. They spoke in poetry and metaphor, but quantum physics provides the mechanics. Observation is not passive, it is creative. You are not just watching the world, you are co-creating it in every moment. Pause, and let that sink in. The table you see, the walls around you, even your own body, they are not fixed objects waiting for you to stumble upon them. They are phenomena crystallizing out of probability, rendered into form by the presence of awareness. Reality is not happening to you. You are happening to reality. Every glance, every focus of attention, every act of awareness is shaping the very fabric of existence. This also explains why so many spiritual teachers have emphasized the power of intention. If observation collapses probability into matter, then your focus is not neutral, it is generative. When you dwell in fear, your observation collapses reality around that vibration, drawing experiences that match it. When you embody love, gratitude, or joy, your observation collapses reality into forms that resonate with those states. The universe is not punishing or rewarding you. It is responding with mathematical precision to the act of your observation. Some have tried to dismiss this by saying the observer effect is limited to laboratories, to the world of subatomic particles. But if the smallest building blocks of matter respond to observation, why would the larger structures built from those blocks behave differently? The logic is inescapable. If consciousness influences the foundation, then consciousness influences the whole. Think of life itself as a vast ocean of probabilities. Every choice you make, every thought you entertain, is like dipping your hand into that ocean and pulling a specific wave into form. Without you, the ocean remains undefined, a field of infinite potential. With you, it becomes the world you live in. You are not a passive traveler in this reality. You are a conscious navigator, steering through infinite possibilities with the rudder of your awareness. This is why Heisenberg's statement is so profound. He wasn't just commenting on the quirks of quantum physics. He was pointing to the truth that reality is not independent of consciousness. Nature does not reveal itself until you interact with it. It doesn't sit there fully formed, waiting to be discovered. It dances into form in response to your gaze. And this is where science and spirituality converge. Mystics have long said that you create your reality through your thoughts, beliefs, and intentions. Quantum physics doesn't just echo that sentiment. It proves it in the most fundamental way possible. The universe is not a machine. It is a conversation, an interactive field in which consciousness is not an afterthought, but the driver. So ask yourself, if your awareness is collapsing probability into matter every single moment, what kind of reality are you creating? Are you aware of where your attention rests? Do you understand that your focus is not harmless but potent, shaping the very contours of your life? Every moment of observation is a brushstroke on the canvas of reality. You are painting your world, whether you know it or not. The double-slit experiment may seem like a puzzle of physics, but it is much more. It is the scientific doorway into the truth that consciousness is primary, that matter is secondary, and that you are a creator disguised as an observer. The universe is not fixed. It is alive, dynamic, and waiting for you to decide which possibilities will collapse into form. And in that realization lies the key to transforming not just how you see reality, but how you live within it. What if I told you that the world you are living in is not the final layer of reality at all? That it is more like a simulation, a virtual environment designed with astonishing precision, not for entertainment, but for evolution? For centuries, people have suspected that something about life feels staged, as if unseen forces are shaping the script. The idea sounds outrageous, yet some of the brightest minds of modern times, from philosophers to astrophysicists, have argued that the odds of us living in base reality are astronomically small. Nick Bostrom, a respected philosopher at Oxford, proposed a famous thought experiment now known as the simulation hypothesis. He argued that if any advanced civilization could create simulations detailed enough to be indistinguishable from reality, and if even one such civilization ever chose to do so, then the number of simulated worlds would far outweigh the number of original, base realities. In other words, statistically speaking, the chances that you are in the one true, unsimulated reality are almost zero. This is not fringe speculation whispered by conspiracy theorists. Neil deGrasse Tyson, one of the most visible astrophysicists of our time, has admitted that he, too, considers it very likely that our universe is a simulation. He describes it as an unsettling but logical conclusion. When you think about how quickly human beings have advanced in just a few decades, from Pong on a black and white screen to immersive virtual realities that trick your senses, it becomes impossible to imagine what a civilization thousands or millions of years older than us could create. Their simulations would be indistinguishable from real life. And if they could create millions, billions, or even infinite versions of reality, then what are the odds that you are in the one true origin world? Almost none. But this is where most people stop short. They hear simulation and picture themselves trapped in some cold, sterile computer program, like characters in a game run by indifferent creators. That is not what the deeper truth points toward. The ancients already spoke of this world as Maya, as illusion, as dream. The mystics knew that what you see and touch is a projection, a veil, not the ultimate reality. The modern simulation hypothesis simply echoes this ancient wisdom in the language of probability and computer science. And when you put both perspectives together, a startling picture emerges. This is not a random simulation running for no reason. It is a purposeful, evolving system designed for consciousness itself. Think of life as a classroom. You are not here by accident. You are enrolled in a curriculum. Every joy, every heartbreak, every relationship, and every obstacle is not meaningless chaos, but carefully arranged material meant to guide your soul into greater awareness. Just as a student moves through grades, mastering one level of mathematics before moving to the next, your soul moves through experiences that stretch and refine it. When you struggle, when you fall, when you get up again, you are not failing, you are learning. This reality, however real it feels, is a school for consciousness. Notice how challenges always seem to return until you learn their lesson. Perhaps you find yourself in the same type of relationship again and again, repeating patterns of betrayal, abandonment, or control. At first, it feels like bad luck. But when you look deeper, you realize these relationships are mirrors, showing you what you need to face within yourself. This is the curriculum. It isn't about punishment, it's about growth. If you don't learn patience, life will give you situations that demand patience. If you don't learn self-worth, life will give you relationships that test your boundaries. If you don't learn love, life will surround you with opportunities to choose fear until you finally choose differently. The system is not against you. It is for you, relentlessly. This also explains why suffering can feel so intense here. In a school, the lessons are designed to challenge you. Easy exercises don't build mastery, struggle does. Life throws you into situations that stretch the very fibers of your being, because only in the stretching does the soul evolve. In this sense, the simulation is not a trap but an opportunity. It is the most advanced learning system ever created, a place where consciousness can explore itself, fall into illusion, and awaken again. Now consider how perfect this setup truly is. If consciousness exists beyond time and space, then what better way to accelerate its growth than to immerse itself in a simulation where choices have consequences, where illusions feel real, and where free will can play itself out? A system like this ensures that consciousness does not stagnate. It ensures that every decision you make feeds into your growth, every emotion you experience deepens your understanding, every act of kindness or cruelty ripples outward, teaching you about the nature of what you are. This also casts synchronicity in a new light. How often have you noticed that life seems to arrange itself in mysterious ways, meeting the right person at the right time, encountering the perfect book, stumbling onto the very experience that pushes you forward? In a random universe, you might call these coincidences, but in a purposeful simulation, they are signals, carefully coded events, nudging you toward the curriculum you signed up for. You are not drifting in chaos, you are guided. The beauty of this idea is that it restores meaning to suffering, and it transforms how you view every interaction. If reality is a simulation designed for consciousness, then nothing is wasted. The heartbreak you went through wasn't meaningless pain, it was a profound lesson in love, vulnerability, and strength. The setback in your career wasn't a cruel joke, it was a nudge, redirecting you to discover your true purpose. Even the betrayals, the losses, the nights you thought you couldn't endure were not empty. They were the curriculum, teaching your soul what could not be taught in any other way. And if you take this seriously, then you begin to see your relationships differently too. That difficult person in your life, the one who triggers you most, is not just an antagonist. They are a teacher, assigned to your classroom with surgical precision, showing you exactly what you still need to face and heal. The loved ones who lift you up are also teachers, reminding you of the joy and support that exist when you align with love. Every person you encounter, whether friend or foe, is part of the curriculum. When Nick Bostrom proposed the simulation hypothesis, he spoke in terms of probability. When Neil deGrasse Tyson echoed it, he admitted it was hard to ignore the math. But when you place their reasoning alongside the wisdom of ancient mystics, you see a bigger picture. This isn't just a simulation for its own sake. It is a cosmic classroom, a sacred school where souls come to grow. And the odds against base reality are not just a mathematical curiosity, they are a clue pointing toward your true nature. You are not trapped inside a meaningless program. You are immersed in a purposeful reality, designed to evolve you into something greater. So ask yourself, if this life is a classroom, how are you treating your lessons? Do you resist them, complain about them, wish them away? Or do you recognize that even the hardest moments are here for your growth? The truth is, you can't skip grades. The curriculum will always circle back until you've mastered what it's teaching you. That's how the system works. It isn't cruel, it's consistent, and it is designed to ensure that you reach the next level of awareness. When you realize this, the weight of despair begins to lift. You stop asking why life is happening to you, and you start asking what life is trying to teach you. That subtle shift changes everything. Suddenly, challenges are no longer punishments but opportunities. People are no longer obstacles but mirrors. And life itself is no longer meaningless suffering but the most advanced school you could ever hope to attend. So the next time you feel trapped, remember this. The odds are overwhelming that you are not in base reality. You are in a simulation, yes, but not a cold one. You are in the classroom of souls, a purposeful, evolving system designed with love, intelligence, and infinite patience. Every relationship, every challenge, every joy and sorrow is your curriculum. And the only question left is this: are you ready to learn? What if I told you that every thought you think and every emotion you feel is not vanishing into thin air, but is bouncing back into your life with mathematical precision? What if the universe is not random at all but structured like a feedback loop? A perfectly balanced system that mirrors back to you exactly what you project into it. This is not just spiritual metaphor. This is what physicist Thomas Campbell discovered when he examined reality through the lens of both science and consciousness. He found that your inner vibration is not private. It is the input that fuels the simulation of your life. Change the input, and the output shifts accordingly. Stay locked in fear, and you will meet fear in countless disguises. Elevate into love, and harmony begins to unfold in ways that feel almost magical. The more you think about it, the more undeniable this becomes. Look at your own experiences. When you are weighed down with anxiety, doesn't it feel as though the world itself begins to close in on you? Suddenly, small inconveniences multiply, traffic gets worse, the people around you seem less kind, opportunities slip away. But when you wake up in joy or gratitude, life seems to conspire in your favor. You meet the right people, chance encounters uplift you, even setbacks turn into blessings. The difference is not luck, it is vibration. The simulation of reality is not indifferent, it is reactive, alive, responsive to your frequency. Campbell described it as a digital information system designed for growth, but within that system lies a rule that feels more spiritual than mechanical. You get back what you put out. Fear, anger, resentment, and doubt collapse reality into outcomes that reinforce those very states. Love, trust, gratitude, and courage collapse reality into experiences that reflect harmony, abundance, and connection. It is not personal punishment or reward. It is simply the law of resonance, working with exact precision, like the formula of an equation. Imagine striking a tuning fork. If you strike one tune to 440 Hz, every other object capable of resonating at 440 Hz will begin to vibrate in sympathy. The universe works the same way. If you hold the vibration of fear, the field around you begins to vibrate at fear's frequency, and it summons experiences that match it. If you hold the vibration of love, the simulation resonates with love's frequency, arranging circumstances to echo that state. Just as the tuning fork cannot produce anything other than its tuned note, your consciousness cannot draw anything outside of its frequency. The feedback loop is precise, it does not make mistakes. This is why Campbell insisted that consciousness is evolving through interaction with this feedback. It is not enough to believe in love or peace in abstract. You must embody it. The simulation reads, not your intentions, but your vibration, your hidden fears, your suppressed doubts, your unacknowledged anger. They are inputs into the system just as much as your joy and gratitude. The output matches the sum of those inputs. Nothing escapes the loop. That is what makes it so effective as a school for consciousness. Every thought and emotion matters, because every thought and emotion becomes data that the system must reflect back to you. If this seems overwhelming, consider how empowering it really is. You are not at the mercy of chance. You are not condemned to randomness. The universe is fairer than you realize. It does not bend its rules for some and break them for others. It mirrors exactly what is given to it. That means the power to reshape your reality is always within reach, not by manipulating the outer world, but by transforming the inner world you carry with you everywhere. Think of a time in your life when everything seemed to spiral downward. You may have blamed circumstances, the economy, other people, bad luck. But if you look deeper, can you see how your inner state was feeding the spiral? Fear drew more fear. Hopelessness attracted situations that deepened despair. The feedback loop kept amplifying the signal until it became impossible to ignore. And now think of a time when you were aligned with trust, hope, or love. Suddenly life seemed brighter, people were kinder, and doors opened where there had been none before. The loop had shifted, not because the world randomly changed, but because your vibration did. This principle has been taught in countless ways throughout history. Religious texts speak of reaping what you sow. Spiritual teachers emphasize the law of attraction. Mystics remind you that as within, so without. Campbell's discovery offers a scientific lens on these timeless truths. He showed that consciousness feeds data into the simulation and receives back experiences that match. The process is precise, measurable, and constant. The universe is not waiting for you to figure it out. It is already mirroring you every moment of every day. This feedback loop is not cruel. It is intelligent. Its purpose is not to punish you, but to awaken you. Without feedback, consciousness would not grow. You could hold destructive thoughts and emotions with no consequence, and evolution would stall. With feedback, every negative state eventually becomes unbearable until you choose a higher one. Every positive state reinforces itself, teaching you the power of love, courage, and truth. The system is designed to encourage growth by showing you exactly what you are creating. The mathematics of this loop are relentless. Every frequency seeks its match. Every vibration generates resonance. Fear creates situations that confirm fear's story. Love creates experiences that confirm love's reality. There is no randomness in this, no accident, no exception. Even apparent coincidences are echoes of vibration. That is why synchronicities appear when you shift your frequency. They are not anomalies. They are signals that the loop is responding to your new input. If you begin to live with awareness of this loop, your relationship with life transforms. Instead of asking why things happen to you, you begin to ask what vibration you are holding. Instead of trying to control other people or external events, you begin to master your own state of being. You realize that the most practical thing you can do to improve your life is to elevate your vibration. Gratitude, compassion, and trust are not sentimental luxuries. They are tools for consciously shaping the simulation. This also means that you can predict your own future with remarkable accuracy. Look at the vibration you are holding now. Fear will inevitably create more experiences of fear. Love will inevitably create more experiences of love. The loop cannot produce anything else. If you want to know where your life is heading, ask yourself, what am I feeding into the system today? So what happens if you fall into fear? Are you doomed? Of course not. The feedback loop is not fixed. It responds moment by moment. The instant you shift your vibration, the data being fed into the simulation changes, and the output follows. It may take time for the momentum of old patterns to fade, just as a tuning fork continues to vibrate for a while after being struck, but the shift is inevitable. You are never trapped. You are always free to alter the input, and, with it, the output. The astonishing truth is that you are already a master of this loop, whether you realize it or not. You are already shaping your world with every thought and feeling. The only difference is whether you are doing it consciously or unconsciously. When you are unaware, you feel like a victim of chance. When you are aware, you realize you are a co-creator. This is the power of Campbell's discovery. It bridges the gap between mysticism and science, showing that the universe is not just a stage where random events unfold, but a finely tuned system for consciousness. Fear generates fear-based feedback. Love generates harmony. The loop does not lie. It does not skip steps. It mirrors exactly what you project, with precision so exact it might as well be mathematics. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, pause. Ask yourself what vibration you are broadcasting. Remember that the universe is listening, not to your words, but to your state of being. And know that whatever you are sending out is already on its way back to you. This is not superstition. This is the feedback loop you are already in, the invisible system shaping your life in every moment. The question is not whether the loop exists. The question is whether you will choose to master it. What if I told you that the people who have come closest to death, those who have crossed the threshold and returned, are bringing back messages that dismantle everything you've been taught about the afterlife? Near-death experiences are often dismissed as hallucinations or wishful thinking, yet when you listen closely to the accounts of people from different backgrounds, cultures, and beliefs, a striking pattern emerges. Their stories align so closely that it is impossible to chalk them up to random imagination. And what they describe is not some distant, unreachable heaven far removed from life here. They describe this very reality, but with the filters turned off, the training wheels removed, and consciousness unleashed in its truest form. Take the groundbreaking work of Raymond Moody, often credited with bringing near-death experiences into mainstream awareness. Through hundreds of interviews with people who clinically died and then revived, Moody documented a set of recurring themes. Patients reported floating outside their bodies, moving through a tunnel of light, encountering beings of love, and reviewing their lives in astonishing detail. What fascinated Moody was not just the similarities, but the consistency across people who had no connection with each other and no chance to fabricate identical accounts. They all seemed to tap into the same hidden layer of reality, as though they had glimpsed the operating system beneath the simulation. Anita Moorjani's story takes this even further. After battling cancer for years, Anita fell into a coma and was given only hours to live. Yet what she experienced in that state was not nothingness, but expansion. She described leaving her body and entering a realm of pure awareness where she felt infinite love and connection. She was able to perceive conversations happening miles away from her physical body. She could understand her doctor's words and even hear her family's discussions outside the hospital room. But more importantly, she felt that the realm she had entered was not foreign, it was home. She realized that fear had been poisoning her life and her body, and in the clarity of that expanded state, she chose to return with a new perspective. Within days of waking, her cancer began to disappear at a rate that baffled doctors. Her story is a living example that near-death experiences are not hallucinations. They are encounters with a deeper reality that can transform life itself. Then there is the case of Eben Alexander, a neurosurgeon who spent his career studying the brain and who was, by his own admission, a skeptic of anything spiritual. When he contracted a rare form of meningitis that shut down the very parts of his brain responsible for producing consciousness, science said he should have experienced nothing, no thoughts, no dreams, no visions. Yet instead, he experienced the most vivid, profound journey of his life. He described entering a realm of boundless love, encountering beings that communicated without words, and perceiving a reality more real than anything he had known on Earth. For a man trained to reduce all experience to brain chemistry, the undeniable clarity of his NDE shook his worldview to its core. He emerged convinced that consciousness does not originate in the brain. The brain is a filter, and when the filter breaks, consciousness expands into its full expression. Across these stories and countless others, certain patterns stand out. One of the most remarkable is the experience of instant manifestation. In the near-death state, thought does not merely imagine, it creates. Individuals describe thinking of a place and instantly being there, thinking of a question and immediately knowing the answer, desiring connection and instantly feeling it. This mirrors the principles we see hinted at in quantum physics and ancient mysticism alike. Reality bends to consciousness, not the other way around. In daily life, manifestation feels slow, buffered, as though lagging behind intention. In the NDE, that buffer is removed, and reality responds instantly, revealing the mechanics behind the simulation we inhabit. Another common thread is telepathy. Those who cross over describe communication not with words, but with direct understanding. Thoughts, feelings, and intentions are exchanged effortlessly, with no possibility of deception. Imagine a world where you cannot hide behind language, where your inner truth is laid bare and perfectly understood. In the near-death state, this is the norm. People describe connecting with loved ones or beings of light in ways that transcend speech, as if the barriers that keep us separate here no longer exist. It is communication in its purest form, soul to soul. Perhaps the most humbling and transformative aspect of these experiences is the life review. Again and again, people report that after leaving their bodies, they are shown their lives in exquisite detail. But it is not just a movie reel. They relive every moment through the eyes of those they affected. If they caused pain, they feel that pain as though it were their own. If they offered kindness, they feel the warmth and joy they gave to others. This is not judgment handed down by some external deity. It is self-judgment, an unfiltered encounter with the truth of how your choices ripple through the lives of others. The lesson is clear: you cannot escape yourself. Every action is recorded, every intention matters, and in the end, you are the one who measures the quality of your own soul. What is striking about all of this is how closely it parallels the feedback loop of life itself. Here on Earth, manifestation is slowed, communication is filtered, and consequences are delayed. This allows us to learn gradually, to correct our mistakes, to evolve through time. But the near-death state strips away those buffers and reveals reality in its raw form. There, thought equals creation, communication is total transparency, and judgment is immediate. It is as though the training wheels come off, showing us what consciousness is capable of when unrestrained. Skeptics often argue that NDEs are simply hallucinations triggered by a dying brain. But this fails to explain the consistency of accounts across cultures, the verified perceptions of events happening miles away from the physical body, or the profound transformations that occur afterward. People who return from NDEs are rarely the same. Fear of death vanishes, material obsessions fade, compassion deepens. They live with a sense of purpose and clarity that cannot be explained by random brain activity. Something real happened, something that revealed a deeper truth about existence. So what does this mean for you? It means that the afterlife you have been taught to fear or idealize is not a distant destination. It is layered into the very fabric of the reality you are living now. The same principles apply here, only softened by time and density. Your thoughts are shaping your world, though the buffer makes it less obvious. Your communication is influenced by intention, even if words hide part of the message. Your actions ripple outward and return to you, though the feedback takes longer. Near-death experiences are proof not that heaven awaits you someday, but that you are already immersed in the same system right now. The difference is only in degree, not in kind. When you understand this, death loses its terror. You begin to see life as a continuum, a single reality expressed in layers. Physical existence is the classroom where lessons unfold slowly. The near-death state is the unveiling of the mechanics, where you glimpse the true nature of the system. And beyond both is the realization that consciousness cannot be destroyed. It is not produced by the body. It is filtered through it. When the body ends, the filter falls away, and the vastness of what you are shines through. So the next time you hear someone dismiss NDEs as dreams or delusions, remember the thousands of people who have crossed the threshold and returned with the same message. Remember the doctor who saw more in a coma than in his entire career, the woman who healed from cancer after discovering the truth about fear, the countless souls who faced their lives with new purpose after glimpsing the other side. They are telling you something urgent, that reality is not what it seems, that you are more than a body, and that the afterlife is not waiting at the end of your days, but is woven into the reality you are walking through right now. What if I told you that the only reason life feels so heavy, so slow, so frustrating at times, is because it is designed that way on purpose? Imagine for a moment that consciousness in its purest form operates instantly. Whatever you think becomes real immediately. Whatever you feel radiates outward without delay. Whatever intention you hold manifests before your eyes. This is what countless near-death experiences describe. A realm where thought equals creation, and reality bends without hesitation. But here, in this physical world, things don't work like that. You can think of love, and yet loneliness might linger. You can imagine success, and yet obstacles rise up in your path. You can hold a dream in your heart for years before it takes shape, if it ever does. The delay feels maddening. And yet, it is not a flaw. It is a feature. It is the slow-motion afterlife, the buffer zone designed to help you grow. Think about how many times in your life you have been grateful for delay. You may not recognize it at first, but delay is what saves you. Imagine if every angry thought you had instantly created chaos in your life. Imagine if every fleeting doubt or fear immediately manifested in front of you. The result would be unbearable, a world of constant turbulence with no space to breathe or learn. Here in physical reality, time functions like honey. Consciousness is slowed, thickened, stretched out. Thoughts and emotions still shape reality, but they pass through a buffer that gives you space to reconsider, to refine, to redirect. Life does not respond with the speed of lightning but with the steadiness of the seasons. This lag is not punishment, it is mercy. Consider the way children learn to walk. They stumble, they fall, they try again. If gravity responded to every wobble with instant punishment, the child would never stand. But the delay gives space to learn balance gradually. In the same way, this physical layer of reality gives you room to make mistakes without destroying yourself. It allows you to test your intentions, to experience the consequences slowly enough that you can make correction. In faster realms of consciousness, there is no buffer. Thought equals creation. Here, you get to practice. This is why so many mystics and philosophers describe Earth as a school. It is not the final destination. It is the practice ground where your soul learns how to use its power wisely. If you look closely, you can see the buffer zone in action every day. Think about the times you've carried worry for weeks before anything happened, or when your fear eventually became reality only after you fed it with repeated attention. Think about how long it sometimes takes for seeds of gratitude or love to blossom into tangible blessings. The delay between thought and manifestation is the buffer revealing itself. It forces you to become intentional. You cannot simply think something once and see it appear. You must align with it, hold it, embody it over time. The universe waits to see not just what you desire in passing but what you sustain as a vibration. The buffer weeds out the noise, the fleeting impulses, the chaotic contradictions of the mind. What remains is what you are truly committed to. This slow-motion effect explains why patterns repeat in your life. If you have ever wondered why the same types of relationships, challenges, or obstacles keep returning, it is because you are still feeding the same vibration into the buffer zone. The simulation waits for you to choose differently. Until you do, it continues to serve up the same lesson, the same echo of your inner state, stretched across time so you can recognize it. If everything manifested instantly, you would never have the chance to step back and ask, "What am I doing to create this?" The buffer ensures that growth is possible. It gives you space to wake up to your own patterns. This honey-thickened reality can feel frustrating when you are yearning for something beautiful. You may ask why love takes so long to arrive, or why your dreams don't unfold overnight. But think of what this really means. The delay forces you to become aligned not just with the idea of what you want, but with the vibration of it. It gives you time to shift from wishing to embodying. You cannot simply say you want peace while radiating chaos. The buffer won't allow it. You cannot say you want abundance while living in fear of lack. The buffer exposes the contradiction. The universe mirrors back not your words but your sustained vibration, and the delay gives you a chance to bring those into alignment. Imagine reality as a vast training ground where every soul is learning how to wield thought and emotion with responsibility. Without the buffer, you would have no time to reflect on the harm or healing your choices create. Here, in the thickness of physical reality, every choice takes time to ripple outward, allowing you to learn from the consequences and adjust your course. It is like learning to paint in slow motion. Every brushstroke is revealed gradually, giving you time to decide whether you want to continue in that direction or change the image. Even suffering looks different in this light. When you experience hardship, it is not always the result of one thought or action. It is often the accumulation of many vibrations fed into the buffer over time. The system is showing you not that you are cursed, but that you are powerful, that you have been creating unconsciously. And because the buffer is patient, it gives you countless chances to turn things around. You can shift your vibration today and begin feeding new input into the system. Over time, the old echoes fade, and the new pattern takes form. The delay is what allows transformation to be possible. Without it, the moment you made a mistake, it would be permanent. With it, redemption is always available. This is why so many spiritual teachers insist that patience is not weakness but wisdom. When you understand the buffer, you realize that life is always working in your favor, even when it appears to be slow. The delay is not absence, it is gestation. Just as seeds must take time to sprout beneath the soil before breaking into the light, your desires and intentions are germinating in the unseen layers of reality. To demand them instantly would be to uproot them before they are ready. The buffer allows them to grow strong enough to endure. Think of your life as a movie played at half speed. Every action, every thought, Every intention is still writing the story, but because it is slowed down, you can actually notice the patterns and change the script. This is the great gift of physical incarnation. It is not the punishment many believe it to be. It is the safe space where mistakes are temporary, where lessons are repeatable, where growth can be steady. You are not trapped in slow motion. You are protected by it. So the next time you feel impatient with life, remember the reason. Reality is not ignoring you, it is refining you. The buffer zone is not withholding your desires. It is training you to align with them so fully that when they arrive, they are real, lasting, and transformative. Honey-thickened consciousness is not a limitation. It is the structure that allows your soul to learn how to create with love instead of fear. When you realize this, impatience gives way to trust. You begin to see that every delay is an invitation to align more deeply with your true vibration. Every repetition is a signpost pointing you toward growth. And every slow unfolding is evidence of a system designed not to punish you but to teach you how powerful you truly are. This is not a meaningless waiting room before some better afterlife. This is the slow-motion afterlife itself, the realm where you practice, stumble, and rise again, preparing for the day when the training wheels come off and consciousness creates without delay. What if I told you that death is not the ending you have been taught to fear, but a simple shift in awareness, a gentle turning of the dial that reveals what has been there all along? For centuries, humanity has been haunted by the idea that death is the great void, the final curtain after which nothing remains. Yet those who have come close enough to touch it and return speak of something entirely different. They describe not an end but a homecoming, not a departure into some foreign land, but a reawakening to a place that feels more real than life itself. Their stories reveal that consciousness does not vanish, it simply sheds its filters, like fog lifting from a valley, leaving the landscape clear and radiant. Consider the testimony of Betty Eadie, who after a near-death experience spoke of coming home to a place I'd never left. Her words cut through the illusion of separation that death seems to present. How could you come home to a place you never left? The answer is simple, because consciousness was never confined to the body to begin with. The body is a vessel, a lens, a filter through which awareness experiences the world. When the body ceases to function, consciousness doesn't vanish, it expands, freed from the narrow constraints of the senses. Death, then, is not a departure. It is a return to the truth of what you already are. Think of life as a radio tuned to a single channel. The music playing through that station fills your world, and you forget that countless other frequencies are vibrating all around you. Death is the moment when the dial turns. Suddenly, instead of one narrow station, you hear the symphony of existence in its fullness. You didn't travel anywhere. You didn't leave your home. You simply shifted your focus. The music was always there. You are not crossing into a new land. You are expanding into the greater reality that has surrounded you all along. This shift explains why so many who return from near-death experiences describe feeling more alive than they ever felt in the body. They report colors more vivid, sounds more resonant, emotions more expansive. Everything seems heightened because nothing is being filtered through the limits of flesh and brain. The body, for all its brilliance, acts as a filter that narrows infinity into a manageable stream. Without that filter, consciousness blooms. Imagine spending your whole life looking at the world through a narrow slit in the blinds, then suddenly having the window thrown open. That is death. Not a destruction, not an exile, but an unveiling. If you listen carefully to those who have walked this threshold, they speak not of terror but of peace. The fear of death belongs to the living, not to those who have experienced it. Again and again, people describe feeling embraced by a love so complete that words fail. They describe entering a realm of recognition, of familiarity, as though waking from a dream into a reality more authentic than the one they left. The body may fall away, but the self, the true essence of who you are, remains untouched. Consciousness doesn't travel to some distant corner of the cosmos, it simply steps out from behind the veil. This perspective dissolves the great fear that has haunted humanity. If consciousness never ceases, if awareness is not bound to the body, then death cannot be an enemy. It is a doorway. It is a channel change. Just as turning off one lamp does not extinguish the light of the sun, The end of bodily function does not extinguish consciousness. The light continues to shine, unbothered, unbroken, infinite. The idea of death as annihilation is a misunderstanding born of mistaking the body for the self. You are not the body. You are the awareness, using it. And when the body can no longer serve as a lens, awareness simply sees through a wider frame. Think about the way dreams work. In a dream, you can experience places, people, and events that feel completely real. But when you wake up, you realize the dream was taking place within your own consciousness. In the same way, what we call life is a dream happening within the vast field of awareness. Death is not waking into nothingness. It is waking into a broader level of that awareness. It is recognizing that the dream was never separate from the dreamer. This is why so many accounts of death emphasize the feeling of homecoming. It is not the discovery of something new, but the recognition of something eternal. The love encountered is not foreign. It is the love that has always been your essence. The clarity perceived is not alien. It is the truth that was always present, obscured by the fog of physical limitation. Death feels like coming home because, in a very real sense, it is. You are not learning anything new. You are remembering what you have always been. The metaphor of the channel change also helps us understand why consciousness doesn't go anywhere. Think of how you switch from one television station to another. The new channel does not travel into the room. It was already there, waiting on its frequency. Your device simply shifted to tune into it. Consciousness functions in the same way. Death is the tuning from one channel of reality to another. The content changes, the perception shifts, but the underlying signal, the awareness itself, remains constant. This explains why so many near-death experiencers insist that the realm they entered felt more real than this one. They didn't go anywhere. They tuned in more fully. The static was gone, the picture clear. So what does this mean for you as you live your life? It means that the fear of death is misplaced. You do not need to fear falling into nothingness. What you will experience is expansion. The people who have returned consistently report that the transition is gentle, peaceful, even blissful. The struggle is not in dying, but in holding on to the illusion that the body is the entirety of who you are. Once you let go, the shift is as natural as breathing. Consciousness flows into greater awareness the way water flows into the ocean once freed from the cup. This also means that the line between life and death is not as solid as you think. If consciousness does not end, if the afterlife is not somewhere else but layered into the very fabric of existence, then you are already immersed in it now. Death is not the moment when you gain a soul. It is the moment when you realize you always had one. The afterlife is not waiting at the end of your days. It is surrounding you in every moment, only filtered by the body's senses. When the filter falls away, the fullness of that reality is revealed. And perhaps most importantly, this understanding reframes how you live. If death is not the end, then what matters is not how long you can cling to the body, but how deeply you awaken while you are here. If consciousness continues, then every choice you make, every vibration you hold, every act of love or fear ripples into eternity. Life becomes not a desperate race against time, but an opportunity to evolve, to expand, to remember. Death will not rob you of who you are. It will reveal who you have always been. So when you hear the whispers of fear about death, pause, and remember the testimony of those who have crossed the threshold. Remember Betty Eadie's words about coming home to a place she had never left. Remember the countless others who describe death not as a terrifying void but as a radiant unveiling. Remember that consciousness does not go anywhere. The filters simply fall away. Death is not an exile. It is a return. Not a collapse into darkness, but a channel change into light. And knowing this, perhaps the real question is not what happens when you die, but what you will do with the extraordinary gift of being alive, right here, in this slow-motion layer of the eternal afterlife. What if I told you that the most ordinary moments of your life, the repetitive cycles you complain about, and even the people who irritate you the most, are all secretly part of your spiritual curriculum? What if nothing is random, and every pattern you experience is a lesson disguised in plain sight? It might sound overwhelming at first, but once you begin to recognize this truth, everything about your daily life takes on new meaning. You stop seeing life as punishment, and you start to see it as the most sophisticated classroom imaginable, one where your soul is the student, and every relationship, every challenge, every struggle is a teacher. Think about how often certain themes keep repeating in your life. Maybe you keep attracting partners who don't respect your boundaries, or perhaps you find yourself in the same kind of conflict at every job. At first, it feels like bad luck, or maybe you think the world is simply unfair. But if you step back, you start to notice that the common thread in all of those situations is you. The repetition is not random. It is life showing you, again and again, the part of yourself that you have not yet healed or understood. Just like in school, if you fail a test, you don't move forward until you take it again and pass. Life works the same way. Patterns repeat until you finally learn the lesson they carry. The beauty of this realization is that it transforms how you see the people around you. Instead of asking why someone is treating you a certain way, you begin to ask what part of you is being reflected back. Relationships are mirrors. They show you not who the other person is, but who you are in that moment. If you are holding self-doubt, you attract people who amplify that doubt. If you are carrying unhealed wounds from childhood, you draw in relationships that mirror those same wounds. It might feel cruel, but it is actually the most direct path to self-discovery. Life cannot teach you who you are by simply telling you. It must show you, and the mirror of relationship is one of its sharpest tools. This is why some people feel like they keep dating the same person over and over, even though the faces change. They wonder why they keep ending up in similar heartbreaks, but the answer lies in vibration. The unhealed wound sends out a frequency, and life faithfully returns a partner tuned to that frequency. Until the lesson is acknowledged and healed, the mirror remains. But the moment you begin to see it as curriculum, everything shifts. You no longer blame the other person, and you no longer curse your fate. Instead, you recognize that the lesson was always about you, your boundaries, your worth, your growth. Struggles themselves are also teachers. They come not to punish, but to strengthen. Think about the challenges you have already overcome in your life. At the time, they may have felt unbearable. You may have begged for them to end, thinking you could not endure another day. But now, looking back, can you see how much you grew from them? How they forced you to become wiser, stronger, more compassionate? Struggle is a sculptor, chiseling away the parts of you that no longer serve, shaping you into a version of yourself that could never have existed without the pressure. Without resistance, there is no growth. Without challenge, there is no awakening. Life uses struggles, the same way a teacher uses difficult assignments. They are not meant to destroy you, they are meant to stretch you, to force you into new levels of understanding. A struggle reveals what you truly believe, where you truly stand, and how willing you are to align with your highest self even when it costs you something. Every time you face hardship, you are given a choice. Will you collapse into fear, or will you rise into love? That choice is the heart of the lesson. The curriculum is perfectly tailored to each soul. What challenges one person might never appear in another's life, because each soul requires different lessons. This is why comparing your struggles to someone else's is useless. Life knows what you need. If you are faced with abandonment again and again, it is because you are being called to find your worth within. If you are faced with betrayal, you are being asked to refine your discernment and strengthen your trust in your own intuition. If you are faced with financial scarcity, you are being asked to re-examine your beliefs about abundance and self-worth. The curriculum is precise, nothing is wasted. Even small frustrations carry lessons. The person who cuts you off in traffic is a test of your patience. The coworker who talks over you is a lesson in self-assertion. The unexpected bill is a reminder of how you handle fear and trust. Life does not waste a single moment. Every experience, big or small, is an opportunity to reflect, to grow, to practice. If you begin to live with this awareness, you realize that the classroom is everywhere. You are never outside of it. Every conversation, every delay, every unexpected twist is a chalkboard written with lessons only you can decipher. When you recognize the curriculum, you stop seeing life as chaos. You begin to see the intelligence behind it. Nothing is random. Everything is feedback. If a pattern repeats, it is because you are ready to face it more deeply. If a relationship triggers you, it is because the wound is ready to be healed. If a struggle knocks you down, it is because life is asking you to rise stronger than before. There is no wasted suffering, no pointless repetition. It is all data, all part of the lesson plan for your soul. This understanding also changes how you respond to pain. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you begin to ask, "What is this teaching me?" That single shift in perspective unlocks hidden strength. Suddenly, you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a student, learning, evolving, growing. Pain becomes purposeful, struggle becomes sacred. Every hardship carries within it a gift, if only you are willing to look for it. The curriculum is relentless, but it is also compassionate. Life will not let you escape your lessons, but it will never stop offering them. Again and again, the same themes return, not because you are cursed, but because you are loved too much to be left incomplete. You are here to evolve, and the system ensures that you will. It is the most perfect classroom imaginable, a place where the soul cannot fail, it can only learn. So the next time you find yourself repeating an old pattern, pause and see it for what it is. The mirror is showing you something essential. The struggle is stretching you into something greater. The pain is a teacher disguised. You are not being punished. You are being educated by the most precise and loving curriculum in existence. And once you begin to see life this way, the fear begins to dissolve. You stop asking for the lesson to end, and you start asking for the wisdom to learn it. When you live with this awareness, daily life transforms. Annoyances become reminders. Difficult people become sacred mirrors. Struggles become stepping stones. Everything becomes meaningful, because everything is teaching you. And slowly, you realize that life itself is the classroom of the soul, and you are right where you need to be, learning exactly what you came here to learn. What if I told you that the very fabric of reality is written in a hidden code, a sacred mathematics that repeats itself endlessly, from the spirals of galaxies to the curling of a seashell, from the branching of trees to the rhythm of your own heartbeat? It might sound poetic, but it is far more than metaphor. It is evidence that the universe is not chaos. It is order disguised as mystery, a fractal pattern repeating itself across every scale of existence. To study these patterns is to glimpse the handwriting of consciousness itself, the blueprint through which reality unfolds. Consider the Fibonacci sequence, a simple series of numbers where each number is the sum of the two before it. It seems like an abstract puzzle at first glance. But when you look at nature, you realize this sequence is everywhere. The petals of flowers often follow Fibonacci numbers: 3, 5, 8, 13. Pine cones, sunflowers, and pineapples grow in spirals that mirror the golden ratio, a ratio that emerges directly from the Fibonacci pattern. The galaxies in the sky swirl in the same design as the whirlpool in the sea. The double helix of DNA twists according to the same mathematics. It is as though consciousness chose a simple formula and imprinted it across creation, repeating it at every level to remind you that everything is connected, that life is one unfolding expression of the same intelligence. This is what mystics have always meant by the phrase, "as above, so below." The micro mirrors the macro. The patterns written in the smallest grain of sand are the same as those found in the vast architecture of the cosmos. Physics confirms this truth when it describes the fractal nature of reality. A fractal is a pattern that repeats itself at different scales. Zoom in or zoom out, and you will see the same structure echoing endlessly. This is not random. It is the natural expression of a universe woven from consciousness, repeating itself so that awareness can recognize its own reflection in every direction. When you look into the spiral of a nautilus shell, you are not just looking at a piece of sea life, you are looking at a hologram of the universe itself. The same ratio that shapes the shell also guides the unfolding of galaxies, the swirl of hurricanes, and even the proportions of the human body. Artists, architects, and philosophers have been fascinated by the golden ratio for centuries because it seems to resonate with something deep within the psyche. Why do we find these proportions beautiful? Why does a spiral or a golden rectangle evoke harmony in the human mind? Because your consciousness recognizes itself in these patterns. Beauty is not arbitrary, it is resonance. It is your awareness remembering its own architecture. Modern physics has revealed something extraordinary that mirrors what mystics have taught for millennia. Reality is holographic. A hologram is a structure where every part contains the whole. Cut a holographic plate into pieces, and each fragment will still contain the image of the entire picture. This is how the universe functions. Every cell in your body contains the full genetic code of the entire organism. Every particle in the quantum field contains information about the entire system. You are not a fragment separated from the whole. You are the whole expressed in a fragment. This is why mystics have always insisted that the divine is within you. It is not poetic metaphor, it is fractal truth. When Hermetic philosophy declared, "as above, so below," it was pointing directly at this holographic principle. The macrocosm and microcosm are not separate, they are mirrors. The stars above you are not distant strangers. They are reflections of the same consciousness that beats in your heart. The patterns in the galaxies echo in your DNA, because both are expressions of the same living intelligence. This is why astrology has persisted for thousands of years, not because the planets control you, but because the universe is fractal, and the same patterns that shape the stars also shape your inner life. To know one is to glimpse the other. This fractal nature of reality also explains why spiritual growth often feels like peeling layers of the same onion. You face the same themes at deeper and deeper levels, circling back to old lessons with new awareness. Just like a spiral, growth is not linear. It expands outward, revisiting familiar points but from a higher vantage. Each time you return to the lesson of love, of forgiveness, of trust, you are not stuck in a loop. You are moving through the spiral, growing into greater and greater alignment with truth. The structure of your own growth mirrors the structure of the universe. The sacred mathematics of fractals also points to something profound about consciousness itself. If reality is self-similar at all scales, then every part of you is a window into the whole. This is why meditation, prayer, and self-reflection can connect you to the infinite. By turning inward, you are not isolating yourself from the cosmos. You are diving into the fractal, where the entire universe is present in every fragment. The divine is not far away. It is encoded in every cell, every breath, every heartbeat. Scientists exploring chaos theory and fractals discovered that complex, unpredictable systems often generate beautiful, repeating patterns. This means that even in apparent disorder, there is hidden order. What looks like chaos is simply complexity beyond immediate comprehension. The mystics knew this long before. They told us that what appears as suffering or confusion in life often conceals deeper harmony. The struggles you face may look random, but they are part of a larger pattern, a fractal design of growth that you can only recognize when you zoom out. What looks like chaos in one moment becomes meaningful when seen across the whole. This is why your life is not separate from the universe. The same patterns shaping galaxies are shaping you. The Fibonacci sequence is not just in flowers and shells, it is in your lungs, your veins, your heartbeat. The golden ratio is not just in pyramids and paintings, it is in your very being. You are not standing apart from the intelligence of the universe. You are one of its expressions. You are the hologram containing the whole. Imagine how your perspective shifts when you truly embrace this. Suddenly, nothing is mundane. Every leaf, every drop of water, every ripple of sound becomes a doorway into infinity. You begin to see beauty not as a luxury, but as a revelation of truth. You realize that the harmony you long for is already coded into reality, waiting to be recognized. And you understand that your own struggles, your own patterns, are part of a fractal journey leading you deeper into the recognition of yourself as consciousness itself. As above, so below is not just philosophy, it is physics, it is mysticism, it is the recognition that the universe is a living fractal, a holographic field where the smallest part reflects the greatest whole. To live with this awareness is to awaken to the fact that you are not lost, not separate, not insignificant. You are the universe folded into human form, learning to remember itself one spiral at a time. What if I told you that the very life you sometimes feel trapped in, with its heartaches, setbacks, and endless questions, is not a punishment at all, but the greatest opportunity you could have chosen? So often people feel as though life on earth is a cruel test, a place of suffering where joy is fleeting and pain is constant. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if Earth is not a prison but a training ground? Not a place where you serve a sentence, but a place where you expand, purify, and refine your soul in ways that cannot happen anywhere else. The very struggles you wish away might be the sacred fires shaping you into who you are meant to become. Think of it this way. If consciousness exists as infinite, timeless, and whole, then why would it immerse itself into this dense, physical reality at all? Why would something eternal, limitless, and free choose to step into a world of fear, scarcity, and limitation? The answer is growth. Just as a diamond is formed under pressure, just as gold is purified by fire, so too is your soul refined through the experiences you face here. This is not punishment, it is purification. Every difficulty, every heartbreak, every obstacle is a teacher chiseling away the illusions that keep you small. What remains is something truer, stronger, and infinitely more radiant. Earth is unique because of its slowness. In other realms of consciousness, thought manifests instantly. You imagine joy, and you are enveloped in it. You imagine fear, and it engulfs you at once. There is no buffer, no delay. But here, in this physical reality, everything is thickened, slowed, delayed. This delay is not a flaw, it is a gift. It allows you to experiment, to make mistakes, to learn at a pace that fosters understanding. Here, you cannot destroy yourself with a single dark thought, nor can you instantly escape into fantasy. Instead, you live in what feels like slow motion, a buffer zone that gives you time to course, correct, to reflect, to grow. It is like a school where the lessons are stretched out so that you can truly absorb them. When you are caught in suffering, it is easy to see life as cruel. But step back and consider the design. Every soul that incarnates here does so voluntarily. You were not forced into this life, you chose it. In the vast expanse of consciousness, you looked at Earth with all its chaos, all its beauty, all its challenges, and you said, yes. Why? Because you knew that this was where the deepest lessons could be learned. In realms where manifestation is instant, growth is swift but shallow. Here, growth is deep and lasting. Here, every victory hard-earned becomes wisdom etched into your soul. Here, every act of love against the backdrop of fear becomes a triumph that changes you forever. It may be hard to imagine that you chose this life, especially when you think of the pain you've endured. But imagine a soul standing in the light, whole and expansive, seeing the bigger picture. From that perspective, even suffering looks different. It is not punishment, but opportunity. You chose challenges not to break you, but to awaken you. You chose certain relationships not for comfort, but for growth. You chose limitations not to imprison you, but to teach you how to transcend them. Every detail of your life carries meaning, and none of it is random. This understanding transforms how you see your struggles. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "Why did I choose this?" That shift is radical. Suddenly, you are no longer a victim. You are a participant in a sacred process of evolution. The betrayal that shattered your heart, the illness that tested your strength, the loss that left you empty, all of these are not random cruelties, but precise lessons chosen to expand your awareness. You do not need to understand them in the moment. Often, the wisdom only becomes clear years later, but trust that nothing is wasted. Every single moment of your life is part of a curriculum designed for your soul. Earth, then, is the slowed-down training ground for souls. Think of it as the most advanced school in existence. Here, you learn patience, resilience, compassion, and above all, love. Love is easy to feel when nothing threatens it. But here, love must be chosen in the face of fear, anger, and division. That choice gives it weight, depth, and meaning. Compassion is easy when everyone around you is kind, but here, compassion must be extended to those who wound you, to those who misunderstand you, to those who seem unworthy. That choice forges compassion into something unshakable. Patience is easy when nothing challenges you, but here, patience is tested every day, and through those tests, it becomes strength. This is why mystics have always said that Earth is not punishment but privilege. To incarnate here is to take on a curriculum that can transform a soul in ways no other realm can. You are living in a simulation designed to stretch you to your limits, so that you can discover just how infinite you are. Every heartbreak, every failure, every joy and triumph is part of that training. The density of this world, the slowness, the illusion of separation, all of it conspires to teach you what cannot be learned in the higher realms where everything is effortless. So why you? Why here? Because you were ready. Souls do not enter this plane unless they are prepared for its intensity. To live as a human being is to sign up for the most challenging, most rewarding classroom available. You are here because you chose to be here, because your soul longed for expansion, because you wanted to experience what it means to create love and light in the midst of darkness. That choice is not small. It is courageous. Every time you endure, every time you rise after falling, every time you choose kindness when it would be easier to close your heart, you fulfill the purpose of being here. This perspective doesn't erase the difficulty of life, but it transforms how you carry it. When you realize your struggles are not random, they gain meaning. When you realize you chose this, you reclaim your power. And when you understand that Earth is a training ground, you stop asking when it will end, and you start asking what you are meant to learn right now. Every challenge becomes a sacred invitation to evolve. You are not here by accident. You are not being punished. You are being refined, expanded, awakened. Earth is the fire that shapes you, the school that educates you, the mirror that shows you who you are and who you can become. You chose this life, and by walking through it, you are fulfilling a purpose that reaches far beyond what you can see. So the next time you question why you are here, remember this: you came because you were ready, because you were brave, because your soul desired to expand into more love than it had ever known. And no matter how chaotic life appears, you are exactly where you are meant to be, learning exactly what you came to learn. What if I told you that the greatest danger in this world is not death, not failure, not even suffering, but forgetting who you are? What if everything you've been taught about your limits, about scarcity, fear, and helplessness, is part of a carefully crafted illusion designed to keep you from recognizing your true power? Once you see that consciousness is primary, the entire structure of control begins to unravel. The stories that say you are weak, unworthy, or trapped cannot survive in the light of this truth. And that is precisely why those stories are told so loudly and so often. Because if you remember who you are, the entire game changes. Think of how society is built. From childhood, you are told where your power begins and where it ends. You are taught that authority lies outside of you, in institutions, in leaders, in systems that decide what you can and cannot do. You are trained to believe that survival depends on following rules you didn't create, working jobs you don't love, and competing against others in a constant race for limited resources. Fear of failure drives you, fear of judgment shapes you, fear of loss cages you. Scarcity is whispered into your ears until it feels like truth. But what if this entire framework is an illusion? What if the only reason you feel powerless is because you've been conditioned to believe you are? When consciousness is understood as primary, everything shifts. You are no longer a body wandering through a cold universe. You are awareness itself, shaping reality moment by moment. Matter is not the foundation, it is the shadow of mind. If this is true, and both ancient wisdom and quantum physics point to it, then the systems built on fear and control begin to dissolve. Scarcity becomes absurd in a universe where consciousness can create. Fear becomes meaningless in a reality that mirrors your vibration. Control loses its grip when you realize that no authority is greater than the one already within you. But here is where it becomes dangerous. Powerful entities, whether individuals, institutions, or unseen forces, thrive when you forget this truth. They need you to believe you are separate, small, and dependent on them. They feed on your fear, because fear lowers your vibration and makes you easier to manipulate. They profit from your belief in scarcity, because scarcity keeps you scrambling, competing, and consuming without rest. They rely on your amnesia, on your forgetting, because as long as you forget that you are consciousness itself, you remain their resource. Look at the patterns in history. Fear has always been the tool of control. Fear of punishment, fear of damnation, fear of poverty, fear of rejection. These fears are repeated so consistently that they become invisible, the background noise of existence. But when you step back, you see the pattern. Fear is not truth. It is programming. And, like any program, it can be rewritten. Scarcity is another illusion. Look at nature. It is abundant beyond measure. A single tree can produce thousands of seeds in its lifetime. A single piece of fruit contains enough potential to fill entire orchards. Yet you are told that there is not enough money, not enough opportunity, not enough time. This keeps you chasing endlessly, too exhausted to question the system. But if consciousness is primary, then creation begins within you. Abundance is not something you chase, it is something you align with. The illusion of scarcity collapses when you remember this. Control itself rests on one simple trick, convincing you that you are separate. If you believe you are separate from the divine, from others, from nature, then you will always seek authority outside of yourself. But when you remember that you are not separate at all, that you are part of the same consciousness flowing through everything, the illusion of control loses its power. No one can rule you when you remember that the universe lives within you. This is why awakening is dangerous. Not dangerous to you, but to the structures that rely on your forgetfulness. When you begin to live as consciousness first, the systems built on fear and scarcity begin to crumble. You no longer buy into their narratives. You no longer give your energy to their illusions. You become sovereign, free, untouchable. And this is the one thing they cannot allow. That is why ancient wisdom was suppressed, why mystics were silenced, why spiritual knowledge was hidden behind layers of dogma. It was never about keeping you safe. It was about keeping you small. But you are not small. You are vast, infinite, and eternal. Your awareness is the source, not the byproduct. And once you truly know this, you cannot be controlled. That is the dangerous implication they don't want you to realize. That all stories of limitation collapse when consciousness is recognized as primary. You are not at the mercy of circumstance. You are not bound by scarcity. You are not a victim of fear. You are a creator, walking through a simulation designed to teach you how powerful you are. Think about how different your life becomes when you embody this truth. Fear no longer paralyzes you, because you know it is only a reflection of your vibration, not an absolute reality. Scarcity no longer drives you, because you know abundance flows through consciousness itself. Control no longer cages you, because you recognize that no external system has power over your inner state. You stop playing the game they designed, and you start creating a new one. This is why so many who awaken to their true nature speak of liberation. It is not liberation from governments, from economies, or from other people. It is liberation from illusion. And once the illusion falls, you see that you were never trapped. You were only asleep. The cage was never locked. The door was never real. The moment you remember, you step out into freedom. But make no mistake, this remembering is the greatest threat to those who feed on fear. That is why fear is everywhere, why scarcity is preached, why control is enforced. They cannot risk you remembering who you are, because if enough of you awaken, the entire system collapses. The pyramid of control relies on the belief of those at the bottom. Remove the belief, and the pyramid falls. So the question becomes, will you believe the illusion, or will you remember the truth? Will you let fear dictate your choices, or will you rise into the knowledge that consciousness is primary? Will you accept scarcity as inevitable, or will you align with the abundance that has always surrounded you? Will you submit to control, or will you live as the sovereign being you already are? The dangerous implication they don't want you to realize is that the game is rigged only as long as you play by their rules. The moment you step out, the moment you remember who you are, the rules dissolve. And then you discover that the real power was never theirs. It was always yours. What if I told you that you don't have to wait for death to begin living in eternity? That you are already walking in the afterlife right now, step by step, breath by breath. For most of your life you've been told that the afterlife is something distant, a place you enter once your body falls away. But what if that was only part of the story? What if the truth is that you are navigating it already, every moment of every day, and the choices you make here are not practice for something later but the actual work of consciousness unfolding in real time? This life, with its beauty and pain, with its laughter and heartbreak, is not a waiting room. It is the afterlife in slow motion, a dimension designed to give you time, space, and reflection as you learn to wield the power of your awareness. Once you see this, everything changes. Suddenly, every moment is no longer meaningless. Each thought you hold, each word you speak, each action you take, is shaping reality in ways you may not even notice. The afterlife is not waiting for you, it is pulsing through you right now. Your consciousness is not preparing for a test that comes later. It is creating, interacting, and evolving in this very moment. You are not a spectator watching life unfold. You are a co-creator, shaping it with every vibration you send into the field. The question is not whether you are creating, the question is whether you are doing it consciously. Think of how powerful this makes you. You are living inside a responsive system, one that reflects back to you the state of your awareness with mathematical precision. If you hold fear, the system responds with experiences that confirm it. If you hold love, the system opens doorways you never imagined. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasted. Reality is always listening, always echoing, always showing you who you are by mirroring it back into your life. This is not superstition. It is the way the simulation functions, the way consciousness interacts with itself in the classroom of Earth. And this is where your awakening matters most. For too long, you have lived on autopilot, letting unconscious patterns dictate your experience. You have repeated the same lessons, endured the same struggles, faced the same mirrors, without realizing you were the one holding the brush. But awakening is the moment you remember. You are not powerless, you are not trapped, you are not waiting for some distant heaven or salvation. You are here now, shaping reality moment by moment, breath by breath. The afterlife is not later. It is layered into this very life, and you are navigating it already. So how do you live as a co-creator instead of a passive participant? It begins with awareness. You must become conscious of your own state, of the vibration you are radiating. Every thought matters. Every emotion matters. Every intention carries weight. When you move through life unconsciously, your vibration is scattered and chaotic, and reality mirrors that back to you in the form of confusion and struggle. But when you become deliberate, when you align with love, gratitude, and clarity, the system responds with harmony. You are not waiting for the universe to bless you. The universe is waiting for you to remember who you are. Living as a co-creator also means taking responsibility. You can no longer blame others for the state of your life. You can no longer see yourself as a victim of chance. Everything you encounter is a mirror, a reflection of something within you. If life presents you with fear, it is showing you where you still hold fear. If life presents you with love, it is reflecting your alignment with it. When you understand this, blame dissolves, judgment softens. You begin to see everyone around you, not as enemies or saviors, but as participants in the same great classroom, playing roles that help you learn. This realization is not meant to burden you but to free you. Responsibility is not the same as guilt. It is empowerment. It is the recognition that you hold the pen that writes your story. If you don't like the chapter you are living, you have the power to shift your vibration and change the plot. The feedback loop of reality is precise, but it is also forgiving. Every moment is a chance to begin again, to rewrite, to choose differently. You are never trapped by the past. You are always free to reshape the present, and in doing so, reshape the future. Think about the times when you have experienced synchronicity. You think of someone, and they call. You dream of an idea, and the opportunity appears. These are not accidents. They are reminders of the truth. Reality is not external to you. It is entangled with you, co-created with you. Synchronicity is the universe winking, whispering that you are in alignment, that you are creating consciously. The more you live with awareness, the more these moments multiply. Life begins to feel less like chaos and more like a dance, a partnership between your inner state and the outer world. But the ultimate key to awakening as a co-creator is love. Love is not sentimentality, it is the highest frequency of consciousness, the vibration that harmonizes everything it touches. Fear fragments. Love unifies, fear contracts, love expands. When you live in love, real, unconditional love, you align with the deepest truth of who you are. The system responds by reflecting harmony, connection, and abundance. This is not a reward, it is resonance. It is the natural outcome of aligning with your essence. Living in love does not mean avoiding struggle. Struggles will still come, but you will meet them differently. Instead of collapsing into fear, you will see the lesson they carry. Instead of resenting the pain, you will recognize it as the fire refining you. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you will ask, "What is this teaching me?" This shift is the mark of a co-creator. You stop resisting reality, and you start partnering with it. You realize that every moment, even the hardest, is a chance to expand into greater love and awareness. This is mastery, not the mastery of controlling life, but the mastery of responding to it consciously. You cannot control every event. You cannot dictate every outcome. But you can always choose your vibration, your perspective, your alignment. And in doing so, you shape how reality unfolds. This is the power of a co-creator. Not to dominate the world, but to align with it. To recognize the divine intelligence flowing through every experience, and to dance with it rather than resist it. When you begin to live this way, fear loses its grip, scarcity dissolves, control no longer cages you. You see that the dangerous illusions were never real. The truth has always been that you are consciousness itself, playing, learning, evolving in the afterlife that is already here. Death will not grant you power, life is already giving it to you. The only question is whether you will use it. So, step into your role fully. Stop waiting for permission. Stop believing that your awakening must come later. Every moment is the afterlife. Every choice is creation. Every breath is sacred. You are not here to survive. You are here to co-create. Live with awareness. Live with love. Live with mastery of your own consciousness. Because the afterlife is not somewhere else, waiting for you in the distance. It is now. And you, right now, are its creator.